All right, so now that Jill has picked on a bunch of defenseless monsters, I'm going to go over a little bit about what gameplay programmers do to give the monsters a fighting chance. So we're going to talk about monster behaviors, monster AI. So here's an example of a really early a monster that we had in the game called the Gravedigger. As you can see from the concept art, he's like a humanoid guy. He makes his living digging up graves, probably attack you with that shovel. Surly guy. So we looked at him, he's a human, so start out with an idle state, an unalert state, what he does when the player's not around. So maybe he's digging a little bit, wandering, digging a little bit. And the player gets close to him. He goes into a suspicious state, like I've heard something, like he kind of wanders around a little bit in a suspicious mode. Then when you get close enough, then he goes into an aggressive state, starts attacking you. So this is what this looks like. If you look to the right of the video, he's coming up here. So there he is. He's digging. Pretend this is a graveyard. He hasn't seen the player yet. Okay, gets close. Oh, he's heard something. He's kind of looking around. He's suspicious. Player gets closer. Now he sees him and he goes and attacks him. Well, as you can probably imagine, I mean, this is what actually happens when players encounter the Gravedigger. So what did we learn? What did the Gravedigger teach us? First is that in our game, normal enemies have very short lifespans. And that's on purpose. That's by design. We really want the player to feel awesome. We want the player to feel really powerful. So we want you to be able to mow through normal enemies and not really have, be spending a lot of time fighting them. And secondly, non-combat behaviors really aren't seen. Our game is an action game. Players engage our enemies really, really quickly. As soon as the enemy's on the screen, players are clicking on them. There's fireballs descending on them, magic missiles, all kinds of things. It's really not a kind of game where people want to try and sneak around monsters. So taking this, we have to pick and choose our opportunities where we can showcase the AI, give the monsters a little flavor. So we can do that in three places mainly. First is when they spawn, like during their spawning animation. So you'll see that's when they come onto the screen. So you'll see in our demo we have some guys climbing up the walls, skeletons are bursting out of barrels, that kind of thing. Second is what Jill showed you, which is their deaths. So during deaths we have a big opportunity to sort of show you a lot more about the character of the monster too. So spiders will shrivel up and shake, and skeletons will burst into an explosion of bones, that kind of thing. And the third is during the combat itself. So I'll talk a little bit about some of the details of our combat. So what's the goal of a combat AI? Is it to kill the monster efficiently? It seems kind of obvious, but turns out it isn't for us. Really, our goal is to make the player feel awesome. And it seems kind of weird, so let me show you an example of this. So here we've got our new class, Demon Hunter. She's got a crossbow. And you can see she's fighting 3 fallen grunts. And since she's got a ranged weapon, she keeps trying to create space for herself. Take a step back, fire, take a step back, fire. But these enemies are super efficient in how they're trying to attack the player. Anytime they see a gap, they're closing the gap and immediately swinging with their clubs. So you can see that her little microing, her little attempt to try and get away from the monsters really isn't working at all. This doesn't really feel awesome for the player. In fact, it feels pretty frustrating. So what can we do? Just by adding a few simple things, we can really affect the situation here. So adding the concept of forced delays. So the first thing is we add a closing delay, and it's really, really subtle. So when the monster wants to close on the player, when it wants to close that gap, we actually hold them back just for a little bit of time. It's almost imperceptible. You can't really see it. Also an attack warm-up. So even after the monster gets up to the player and wants to swing his club, we prevent him from doing that for a very small period of time. And we also add a run-stop movement. So even when the monster is running directly at the player, we force him to stop occasionally. So as you can see, this player is actually able to really create some space, kind of micro these guys a little bit more, and really we reward the player for moving. We reward the player for playing an action game. So layering on top of that a little bit, some other stuff that we can do. We can add a taunt, so you look at some of the guys in the back are kind of slamming their clubs or raising their shields. Gives a little bit of an opportunity for us to give them character. Also, we introduced the concept of running near the player as opposed to directly at them. So sort of give you the sense of threat as opposed to like a direct threat all the time. And then also we can add things that are like classic Fallen behaviors, like fleeing when your allies get killed. So let's put this all together in a more realistic game situation. Here's the Demon Hunter again, except we've given her Entangling Shot, we've given her Multi-Shot, and put also a ton of Fallen on the other side. And you can see the player's able to create some space. The player's able to really control the situation. I mean, she feels awesome. This feels awesome for the player. This is really what we want out of the Diablo combat experience.
Hi, my name is Christian Leitner. I'm the art director, and I'm going to walk you guys through tools of instruction. So customization is a huge part in Diablo 3. We're really trying to push that a lot and give the player a lot of choices so you guys have a lot of interesting things you guys can do to your characters. And this obviously starts, first of all, with our armor sets. And what you're seeing here is one of the little bit more advanced armor sets for the Barbarian. In the background, you can actually see the concept that started this armor set. And that was done by our very own Josh Tallman here on our panel. And what we're trying to do when we design these armor sets initially is that we're really trying to come up with a lot of variety. We're trying to make sure that it is very distinct for the class. This is an armor set obviously for the Barbarian. It's a little bit more ornate than maybe you would expect from a Barbarian, but it still feels very much like it would be a Barbarian. He's got cut off elephant heads on his shoulders, if you notice that. And at this stage, really, a lot of the things we really pay a lot of attention to is that while we want to give you guys a lot of choices, we also want to make sure that it still feels very much like the class. Here's another armor set that we have for the Witch Doctor. And again, you can see the scary mask concept that was initially done for this in the background. And in the foreground, you actually see the 3D model that's in-game. Again, very specific to the Witch Doctor, feels like the Witch Doctor, and it's just something that really gives you that flavor for that class. Again, it's very important that we keep the flavor going. Another thing that's very, very important on these character sets is silhouette. We want to make sure that from the game cam, it reads really, really well. In this case, you can see the big headdress, these spider legs sort of sticking out of the helmet. It's very iconic of the Witch Doctor, but it also reads really, really well. You want to be able to see who's wearing what armor set when you're playing with your friends, co-op online, and really have fun with that. Another example would be this. Again, this is a barb armor set. You can see the shoulder pads are really strong. They define the silhouette really, really strongly. And again, you probably won't miss him when he's running past you in a dungeon. Another thing is to, every once in a while, we try to push the envelope a little bit. The Witch Doctor is a good opportunity for that. We look around and we sort of get ideas for what we could do with a class that would maybe push an interest level or the particular thing that really epitomizes this class a little bit more. In this case, we had this crazy idea from our concept team that what if the armor moved? What if it had these sort of like these tentacles on the shoulders and on the headrest that would actually be moving? So what you see is a concept on the bottom there, or on the left, excuse me, and the 3D model on the right. And we actually built it. It's one of our favorite sets. And in motion, it actually ended up looking like this. Yeah. So you can see it's really creepy looking, and again, it's going to look really great from game cam as you're playing this stuff. Of course, what's all this epic armor without epic icons?
Nothing. Nothing.
Yes. Mike does our icons. So what you can see here is the icons actually match, obviously, the 3D model. So as you put your icons on the paper doll, it will show up on the 3D model to the left. What's nice about this, too, is